Jupiter's Olympian family would periodically cluster in assembly, deliberate in council, or otherwise congregate in juridical or senatorial negotiations. Such tropes are indicative of early interplanetary conjunctions that unfolded as the dismembered planets reoriented with respect to the plane of the ecliptic. Zeus gathered all the gods in his most honorable residence at the world's center. In Mesopotamia, Marduk, the most honored of the gods, sat down on his tall throne, summoning the great gods to assembly. A Mayan painted pot likewise depicts 6 gods in council with the 7th elder god, God El, who sports Jupiter's broad feathery headdress, which is also an owl's nest, a long mantle or cape, and a long cane. Battles for heavenly kingship may correspondingly represent this same earlier pattern of periodicity between conjunctions, which periodically broke out into brief excursions of eruptive violence, transiting plasmasphere intersect events highlighted by distinctly visible electrical exchanges. The Nice model's jumping Jupiter scenario strikingly concurs with the mytho-historical record and other catastrophist reconstructions, insisting that, in addition to radial migration, interplanetary encounters needed to have occurred in order to explain the current properties of the outer solar system. Such encounters are considered to be the only mechanism known to be able to produce large-scale orbital separation of the planets. Thus we hear in Hesiod's account that Jupiter did not wear his new crown so easily. His new order of the world was attacked in earth-shaking revolts, first by the Titans, who were the Saturnian planets, the giant older generation of gods. With an increasing level of dust in the ecliptic, batteries of thunderbolts were hurled in massive firework displays as scintillating streams of plasma played across the sky. As is well known, these thunderbolts were depicted worldwide as twisted shafts with a ball plasmoid and bifurcating trident at either end. Such fantastic displays of power were remembered mythically as the magical weapons of the gods. The lightning of Zeus that never misses, the electric hammer of Thor, the ceremonial serpent bar of God El, or the Vajra bolt of Indra. The thunderbolts of the gods appear to have heavily impacted every known moon of the Jupiter and Saturn systems. The Nice model suggests that these satellites and others would have lost mass due to impact vaporization during an era of massive bombardment, leaving their surfaces scorched, fractured, shattered, and deeply scarred. In addition, these interactions would also have generated enough heat to melt ice and vaporize water. A highly active electrical circuit between Jupiter and Io is still observable today. Io regularly sports multiple moving discharge plumes with occasional eruptions or intense flare-ups that shine brightly in infrared. Periodic Jovian outbursts have also been witnessed, and more recently videotaped, for centuries. If we can see these subtle types of activity at work in the Jovian system now, when Jupiter seems so quiet, just imagine how stupendous earlier displays must have been. The outbound migration of Jupiter and Saturn appears to have been rather fast. Eventually, as the giant planets retreated, increasing their orbital radius with every revolution around the Sun, they would have been in the middle of the asteroid belt. Saturn and the Titans, their voltages significantly reduced after electrical exchanges with Jupiter, considerably shrank their glow mode comas and fluorescent plasma appendages. Vedic references compare this to snakes shedding their skins, strikingly expressed as, the serpents became the suns. Following soon after, Jupiter himself entered the asteroid belt, and his lower plasma plume shrunk to sideways streams, swaying beneath a diminished but warmly glowing red coma, the ram-headed form of the red nighttime sun, Amun-Re. A handful of nearly identical symbols derived from this basic form were popularly employed by several cultures worldwide. In Egypt, it was called the shen. The hair-like fibers at the top and bottom all but complete the appearance of a reduced plasma discharge emanating from both poles. Sometimes regarded as a knotted rope, it was also used as a cartouche outlining the king names of pharaohs. It was adopted by the Olmec and the Maya as an escutcheon, where it was similarly tied in a knot and employed as a frame. Similar forms, sometimes depicted as ceremonial bracelets, neck rings, or torques, have been recovered worldwide. Migrating through ranging swarms of asteroids, Jupiter's backflowing plasma tail struck dwarf planets Ceres and Vesta, as well as hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of broken planetesimals and meteoroids with megavolts of direct current, scattering thousands of others into erratic orbits widely deviating from the ecliptic. Like a king who wanted to build his palace on powerful cliffs, he had the rocks smashed and blocks hewn out of them. A great wellspring of flowing water sprang forth, we read in the Kabbalah. All in all, the migration of the outbound star gods through the asteroid belt represents the second battle, described by Hesiod as Zeus's struggle with misshapen giants, chaos monsters, and ferocious humanoid dragons. In the end, the asteroid belt was swept clean of any planetesimals orbiting along the plane of the ecliptic. In fact, asteroid orbits do not lie in any single plane. The vast majority are thinly distributed across distinctly defined regions, with a dozen or so major swarms huddling together in transit. Their highly elliptical orbits still exhibit perturbations today. Some asteroids develop a comet-like coma or multiple tails when journeying towards the Sun. A few have even been observed in active disintegration. The electric arcing that devastated the asteroid belt launched tons of fine dust and rocky debris through surrounding space in sputters of positively charged billowing clouds, illuminating a wide band centered on the ecliptic with reflected sunlight. Sparkling debris remained suspended along the ecliptic plane for thousands of years. This band became a much brighter and more clearly defined ring, ribbon, or river of luminous debris, in comparison to the relatively diffuse sea of dissipating reflective dust in the inner solar system. This may account for a key feature in the popular development of the primeval water motif, where the formerly indefinite waste of water is contracted into a vast river. Known variously as the Golden Way, the Pollen Path, the Vetriani River, the River Styx, the River Sanzu, or the River of Pus, it was regarded as leading to heavenly afterworlds, such as the fields of Araru, or Elysium, the halls of Belskemur, or Valhalla, Shambhala, Summerland, the Isles of the Blessed, and many other variations of a heavenly world to come, the destination on the far shores of the Duat, the repository of souls in between lives to which the dead rode in their boats toward the red midnight sun Re. The nighttime sun, the sun god of the netherworld, has been a perennial theme in mysticism and occultism ever since. In the depths of midnight I saw the sun glittering with a splendid light, penned Apuleius hundreds of years later. Likewise, in the Kabbalah we read, the planet Zodek, that is, Jupiter, made the night bright. Zodek was originally an old Canaanite name for Jupiter, the rightful, just, or righteous king of the star gods. In the Old Testament, Zodek is portrayed as a manifestation of Yahweh, the all-seeing, chariot-driving judge of the nations, the minister of the right hand, who brought hidden crimes to light and righted the wrongs done to the innocent. Openly referred to as a sun, Zodek was often invoked in Hebrew verse in connection with the Mesharim, an old Canaanite name for the morning and evening stars, that is, Mercury and or Venus. Occasionally bright enough to be seen even in daylight, Jupiter might have even periodically appeared as a second daytime sun. Jupiter would have also occasionally risen in the east amid the splendor of zodiacal light just before dawn, each time Earth and Jupiter arrived at opposition. North American natives such as the Skitty Pawnee paid tribute to a red morning star with violent festivities held at roughly 10-year intervals, a value that seems to exclude Mercury, Venus, and Mars as possible candidates. The Nice model suggests that the radial migration of Jupiter and Saturn continued to excite the orbital eccentricities of terrestrial planets like Venus and Earth. If Venus and Earth had more dynamically excited orbits back then, the study of the evolution of the terrestrial planets during the changes of the giant planets' orbits is a key to unveiling the real evolution of the solar system. Venus, like Earth, had earlier been displaced from the former polar alignment and was shedding charge in order to acclimate to its new solar environment. Appearing as a stupendously large comet day and night, Venus was obsessively tracked by early astronomers, watchful of potential conjunctions that might align Venus and Earth along the plane of the solar current sheet. Such conjunctions could only fall on an equinox when both Earth and Venus were transiting the ecliptic. Passing in front of the Sun on the day of the equinox, a Venus transit would eclipse the Sun at the same time as its extended plasma tail would make contact with Earth's plasmasphere. Superimposed charge sheaths would expose both planets to an intense repulsive shock, compressing and contorting huge stretches of land and sea, pushing Earth into a wider orbital ellipse with its axis torqued in gyroscopic response. Each time Earth was propelled away from its former orbit, its charge potential would acclimate to the Sun's electric field once again, and extensive flow vortices at both poles would radiate intense aurora funnels and toroidal columns. These plumes would have been visible day and night to everyone on Earth, extending out from the poles and trailing away for thousands of miles through Earth's plasma tail on the night side of the planet. The plume extending from Earth's south pole was particularly associated with Jupiter, seen nearby in southern skies, becoming enshrined in myth as the thunder god's war bow, long cane, or right leg. In the Kabbalah, this is the right leg of Yahweh, the phallic foundation pillar in the center of the southwest. In all mythic references, the Jovian war bow dramatically reappeared during or immediately after large-scale Earth cataclysms. Its peculiar bend along the tail of Earth's charge sheath became a strange but commonplace motif in the iconography of many cultures. Often invoked in antiquity, in 2009, NASA's Themis satellite rediscovered these plasma plumes in dark mode, bending up into the magnetosphere on the night side of Earth. Venus-Earth conjunctions could also potentially unleash a battery of electrical exchanges. Having no intrinsic magnetic field of its own, Venus's induced charge sheath could have conducted plasmoid discharges along its extended comet-like plasma tail. Twisting and contorting in blinding arc mode discharge, a string of plasmoids frolicking in the cloudy fire waters of space surrounding Earth closely matches descriptions of dragons remembered worldwide. These dragons likely roam the skies during every Venus-Earth close encounter. On one such occasion, an equinoctial Venus-Earth conjunction unleashed a furious dragon into the debris ring surrounding Earth. When he sneezes, light leaps forth. His eyes are like the eyelids of the dawn. From his mouth come fiery torches. Sparks of fire fly out of it. 100 snakeheads grew from the shoulders of this terrible dragon, with black tongues flickering and fire flashing from the eyes. When the dragon stands up, the waves themselves take fright, the billows of the sea retreat. He churns the deeps into a seething cauldron. He makes the sea fume like incense. Upper ionospheric discharges, red sprites, followed, remembered as a barrage of red arrows shot in defense of Earth by Jupiter's war bow, Earth's own south polar plume appearing simultaneously in the skies in response to Earth's widening orbit. Thunderbolts racking the sky, Earth was violently convulsed. Tilting up in the sky as Earth torqued off axis, Earth's debris rings were broadsided by the disconnected bolts, streaming across the sky in gaseous glowing envelopes that gradually descended through the ionosphere in downpours of sparkling spatters, some falling to earth in streaks of bright red. It is here suggested that this is the origin of the mythological motif known as the shattering of the vessels, the release of the waters, and the second flood. Mysticisms of later ages, including the Gnostic schools of the major monotheisms, still evoke memories of the falling sparks that descended to earth from overhead after a cataclysmic cosmological drama brought creation to an end. In the Kabbalah, such references indicate that there were 7 vessels which shattered. Other sources suggest 9. The 7 or 9 swirling, back-flowing streams of Okeanos similarly withdrew from encircling the earth when boiled away by the burning blasts of Zeus. In the Enuma Elish, it was said that the institution of kingship was lowered from the sky for a second time after Marduk's battle with the dragon. Jupiter seems to have again developed a mountainous plasma expulsion from its south pole soon afterward, perhaps in response to the plasmoids released by Venus, or perhaps simply in a further attempt to reach equilibrium with the electric field of the Sun in the space beyond the asteroid belt. An outlying remnant of Earth's former equatorial debris appears to have remained suspended as a narrow, ruddy-colored band for some time thereafter. Much less impressive than the rings of old, this band, often personified as a world-encircling serpent, nevertheless served as the nighttime sun's daily adversary. Referred to as the River of Blood, or the Red River, the Egyptians called it the serpent Apep, or Apophis, a continual threat, constantly repelled by Re but never killed. At the end of every night, Apep was shriveled and burnt up by Re, but he was able to renew himself daily. The unordered realms of chaos were thus never completely abolished, but continued to surround the orderly world on every side. Each day brought both a confirmation of the established order as well as a forcible reconquest of it. The world-encircling snake was also a key visual reference toward the pinpointing of equinoxes. While the bloody serpentine river remained fixed along the equatorial plane in the south, the tilted glowing hoop of zodiacal light along the ecliptic would be visible below the red ring during summer and above it during winter. But at both equinoxes, the glowing ecliptic would visually cross over the remaining red ring. Nibiru, the crossing place, refers to this visual intersection of the equator and the ecliptic, which twice a year indicated the position of the equinoxes for our ancestors by luminously bisecting the night sky. This was seen as the crossing of sky bands in Mesoamerica, that is, the confluence of the equatorial River of Blood and the ecliptic River of Pus. It was also explicated in an otherwise puzzling passage in Plato's Timaeus, which references the visible crossing of the motion of the same, or the equatorial ring, which is always seen plumb along the horizon, and the motion of the diverse, or the glowing band of the ecliptic, which seemed to shift position nightly, moving from west to east on a diagonal. The demiurge Zeus joined these to each other at the center like the letter X. In the Enuma Elish, it was Marduk who founded the station of Nibiru to determine the heavenly bands. The name Nibiru was likewise applied to Jupiter explicitly, as Marduk's star, when he periodically stood in conjunction with Earth on the equinox in visual alignment with the equinoctial intersection of the red ring and the glowing ecliptic. Spacing out on their radial migrations, the mytho-historical record suggests that the planets eventually drifted far enough away from each other as to cease all direct electrical interaction. The previous series of encounters led to an irreversible increase of the orbital separation of the giant planets. They were retired gods. Mankind might have seen all of them recede into the farther reaches of the developing solar system. Neptune and Uranus continued to recede into distant darkness. They were rediscovered some 5,000 years later by telescope and named after two of the titans banished by Zeus to the dim netherworld of the night sky. The Kabbalah refers to this place as the land under the river, saying, "That which descends into this land does not reascend." As it is said, "The gods who had no part in making the heavens and the underworld perished when entering the land under the river." Saturn, forced to take refuge at the end of the world, at the source of the rivers, in the hollow of the abysses, was banished in chains to a blissful island where he dwells in slumber. Being immortal, he cannot die, but lives a life in death, wrapped in funeral linen. The stellar blazing of Jupiter also came to an end with his arrival at his modern orbital ellipse and equilibration with the negative charge of surrounding space. Jupiter's coma likely exploded into nova-like brilliance a final time when dropping down more permanently to dark mode. This seems to have been widely attested as Jupiter's retirement, disappearance, extended sleep, or even death. Marduk's mountainous garment had disappeared for the last time. In several cultures, a portion of Jupiter's royal duties were reassigned to swift-footed Mercury, who soon became the most popular star god on Earth. In Egypt, for example, the retiring sun star Re handed over celestial responsibilities to the god Tahuti, who thereafter became the place-taker or deputy of Re. Similarly, in a rabbinical elaboration on the Book of Daniel, the Ancient of Days, that is, Arik Anpin, the extended countenance of the nighttime sun, handed off the rule of the kingdom to the son of the clouds. In the winged disk of Mercury, those who walked in the chaotic post-catastrophic darkness of world ages yet to come would also see a great sun-like light.